Like you can't be a gamer in big games. Like you have to still execute even against lesser opponents. Like, it's cool. Like we got away with it. We sweated it out, but like, I can't wait until we see Georgia or I can't wait until we see Indiana. Like, nah, you got to now sit here and lock in a little bit with Maryland.
What is it? I'm asking you, obviously, quarterback offense. Because my dad would always say, why can't we do that the whole game? To some point, I do understand what he's saying. It's like that sense of urgency we had.
It's hard, bro. Like sometimes you're in a rut no matter what, can't get right when you're trying to get right, and then you just speed things up and you make it reactionary. It's the best space for athletes to be in, but it's really hard to trust athletes to be in that space at all times, if that makes sense. The way Coach approached that last series starting with the fake punt for the first time in Coach's career, I think up there that I can really put a finger on. He said, fuck the statistics and I'm going with what my balls tell me. The guys made the plays and I think they fed off that.
Yeah.
It was like, it started with the fake punt in your own territory. He's like, nah, fuck that. We're going for it again. I just haven't seen Coach do that in those situations. And it was like, it was surprising in like the best way.
Quarterback sneak right side, touchdown, Penn State!
And this segment's brought to you by Family Clothesline. They kept us looking sharp all weekend. I'm currently wearing one of the Lulu Polos. It's a Family Clothesline exclusive. Make sure you guys check out Family Clothesline for all of your Penn State apparel needs.
And here we are, heading into the final week of the season. Barely.
We made it.
I don't know if we jinxed it talking about the dominant fashion in which we need to win games, and then you know we do it for two, and of course something's got to happen, right? But we did it. I'm not going to back down from I don't consider this a failure, obviously, because you still won the game. But I do think we opened up the door to be overanalyzed by it now.
Right. You already were going into it.
Correct. And I'm beyond like the want to know each week thing. But I will say, a lot easier to have this discussion after a win.
Right.
So we'll dive into that though too. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But pretty crazy though too. I think it kind of helped a little bit of chaos, specifically in the SEC.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit better. But yeah, before we jump into that stuff, dude, as always, sponsors of The Pocket and State Media channels. Big shout out to Z-Bart. You will get a Z-Bart defensive play of the game later on in this pod from B. He's been crushing that segment. Really good stuff. And Z-Bart, obviously, if you guys are looking for anything with your car needs, make sure you guys check them out. Super, super professional, very experienced in that field. So Family Clothesline, Caroline, always hooking us up, doing a great job down there. Great shop, stop, a lot of initiatives for the whole community coming out of that storefront. So whether it's online, storefront, in town, whatever, make sure you guys are checking out Family Clothesline. They're always up to date with the dopest shit. Expect some really cool stuff coming out for the potential first round home playoff game, as we will see what goes on with that, because we got some talking to do about that too. There's some doors that are now open. And then lastly, what were you saying, B?
I'd say very possible.
Yeah, very possible. And then lastly, hidden still, blue white bourbon. B's got it in the back.
I gotta catch up, man. Damn.
You can tell. I don't mind it. Great partner. Great initiative as well. Really helping out with NIL. So make sure if you guys stocking up on any type of brown water for your tailgate, your watch parties, whatever. He donates a big percentage of a relatively big percentage of all proceeds for that particular product goes back to the collective and NIL initiatives. So if you got the choice between Jack Daniels or Blue White Bourbon, make sure you're supporting the boys. You know how to do that. So appreciate Jack and team over there letting us put that message out. But now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about it. It was a crazy weekend. Bama goes down. Ole Miss goes down. Bama goes down bad.
Yeah,
Ole
that's
Miss
the thing.
goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ole Miss goes down. Colorado goes down. I'm missing one.
Ah, damn, we just talked about it.
I know. I'm missing one.
Ole Miss, Texas A&M.
Texas A&M goes down. That's right.
Texas A&M.
So, very, very interesting. Very interesting. And, Arizona State, not really an upset, but
BYU,
it's
yeah.
BYU, which really disrupts that whole Big 12 picture now. Really interesting. But, what was I think the Bama one was probably the most surprising.
I mean, was it a 4-5, 5-4 Oklahoma team who obviously, they've got guys and they're always, dangerous, but haven't been able to quite put it together this year, and then to come out and really put it on Alabama. I mean, there was some, the Bama Crimson Tide will talk about the questionable calls, but nonetheless, I mean, it was 24-3, I think, at one point.
Yeah, a questionable call here and there is not making
Milroe, struggled a lot that game for whatever reason. Kudos to Oklahoma and that defensive staff and those guys coming out, and then the offense as well, putting up points on Bama. It's one thing to stop them, but to kind of run away from them on the opposite end on the offensive side. That Knight kid, they made some plays, and down goes Bama. And they're already talking about how can a 3-loss Bama make it to the playoffs. So
crazy, right? Well, yeah, they're talking about that, and even an Ole Miss, right? With Ole Miss going down to Florida. Florida getting hot, beating back-to-back ranked teams now. Billy Napier, all that noise he had early in the year.
Confidence, man. Confidence in the coach. Confidence in the young new QB. Langway is
Gainesville.
I mean, we all know college football will be, realigned when Florida football's back. We got Miami back.
We got Tennessee back. Back.
Yeah, but I guess Miami's about to lose their Heisman candidate quarterback, so we'll see how they come back after next year. When those power schools are back, college football is at its best, and hopefully they are. Shake the SEC up a little even more.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Texas A&M goes down to Auburn 4 overtimes though. They were getting smoked early, fought back, scratched back because there's still a unique path, I think, for them to the SEC championship game if they beat Texas next week, which would be another 3-loss team. That again, so you got Bama, Ole Miss, and A&M that they're all trying to make a case for a 3-loss team going in. I just don't see it, man. I think another point to talk about, we'd be ashamed not to talk about, is the Ohio State Indiana game. I kind of had a feeling it would potentially get that way. But when you really watch that game, Indiana shot themselves in the foot a lot. And you can't do that against an Ohio State team. They will come back. And,
we know. Of all people,
they'll put licks on you. So as lopsided as the score may have seemed, I thought that they at times showed some glimpses of a team that could create some problems if they play a little bit cleaner, top to bottom. So I think Indiana is a no-brainer for the college football playoff, especially with the way the ACC and the Big 12 have been playing all year.
Yeah, I was locked into that game, and I thought it would come down to the end. And like you said, just those mistakes. You give. I mean, I think we talked about it in our Ohio State week. You give those Sharks a drop of blood. Best believe they're going to take it, and they did, and ran away with it. But Indiana definitely looked tough. For a little bit, I'm thinking who is the best team in the Big Ten, for a second there. But Ohio State, they overpowered them, overmatched them towards the end. And just sticking in the Big Ten, did you catch the Illinois Rutgers ending was a big one. That really kind of, not to keep it all about us, but it says Penn State Pod, helps our case with Illinois, being, I think they're 9-3, one of the tougher squads that we've played. Finishing off the season. But that was a crazy ending. Decided to call a timeout.
Tried to
Rutgers. Yeah. I mean, you can't even question them for doing that, because that play that they made, I mean, you bite yourself you shoot yourself in the foot because they made it, but you trust your defense to get a stop on fourth and I think like 13, 15 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, it reminds me of the Cowboys-Washington play earlier in the day here. And still somehow they didn't come out with that. But
that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
All the special team mishaps in that game, and then you know, launch a low snap back there, and the guy overthinks it. The holder does a great job of getting it up.
Yeah, he got it down.
And he overthinks it and fucking yanks it.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a great transition to our game. Special teams and a few blunders, a few magical plays. The boys in blue, like you said, we got it done 26-25. Man, like you said, it's always easier to come in here on Sunday, no matter the score, when we end up on top and talk about it. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do that. And then something to carry also from that Ohio State game and that outcome. I think if Michigan somehow comes out here and surprises all of us, shows a pulse, and happens to beat Ohio State, it is a rivalry game. We all know how these rivalry games can go.
Yeah, I did want to get into that.
I think that correct me if I'm wrong here, folks, listeners, but I'm pretty sure that would send us to Indianapolis if we get it done against Maryland this weekend.
It's the game, whatever the hell they call it. Yeah, I did want to speak on that before we got into our game. Rivalry weekend across the nation. You talked about Texas A&M. All these schools that are going to play some big dogs still have a lot of, contention. And we'll shift things up depending on how these things fall. Florida, as you said, they've got juice right now. They can shake things up even more. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these 12 teams are decided come this time next week.
No doubt. Yeah, there is some skin in the game, and then you have the championship games, which actually I didn't really think about, but that's going to be super interesting to see how that plays out with the runner-ups in those conferences. I would assume the runner-up in the ACC and the Big 12 probably don't get a look, but the runner-up in the SEC and the Big 10 are definitely going to have arguments for that to be the case, and could be really interesting if it is, you have some teams sitting on the outside looking in who didn't necessarily play in that game at 11-1, 1 or 2 losses, potentially having a 3 or 4 loss team making the playoff just because they made the championship game and runner up. So that's an interesting thing. I think college football playoff needs to kind of handle that, and I think college football as a whole with those conference championship games.
And they're already getting a lot of criticism now. So coming out of that weekend, it's going to be even more ready, depending on how it shakes out.
Because you sit there and you look at it, Penn State, for example, like let's say something does happen to Ohio State. Ohio State goes in there and loses to Oregon again. Same thing though, dude. Like where do you fall? Do you fall to an away game slot now, and then you got to turn around and play another game? It's a little interesting to me how that's gonna play out, but makes me kind of wonder if Penn State wants Ohio State to handle business and kind of be on the outside looking in at 11-1. Have a down week to kind of get your stuff ready, get your shit right, figure out who you're going to play, and then get after it. So anyway, like you said though, getting into this game, broad stroke scared the hell out of me. Yeah, those special teams things. Like let's start there. That was the block punt. Bananas.
Yeah, what was the score at that point? We were still down.
We were still down, but I just didn't understand it. You're in tight. You shift out your edge protectors on the front line, so you tighten the edge, and then your punter, who's a rugby-style punter, takes
run to
7 steps and outflanks the shield and puts a young freshman in Luke Reynolds, who made up for it later on in the game. But
spoiler alert if you didn't see it.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But you put him in a pretty shitty situation. And he ends up, it ends up getting blocked with his guy just capturing an edge. And it just was a really weird situational mishap where it was like, bro, like it's a tight punt. Like just get that fucking thing out of there. Like don't do anything crazy. Why do you shift the edge out and make it tighter? Like it was just a weird. When I was watching it, I was like, what are we doing?
I think that was everyone's reaction the whole first 2.5 quarters. Even the same goes for the field goal. I mean, block down, and the last man's got to punch and make them run the hoop, run the edge, and for whatever reason, we part the Red Sea, and the guy gets a free run. And that's kind of my overall, frustrations with the team. Kind of every week, there's something, and we're not going to shoot 100% every week, so not coming down on the squad or anything. But I've said it, USC week. A lot of these weeks is we give teams aren't necessarily outright beating us and making plays on us. A lot of I think 80-70% of the plays that the other team make are kind of at our fault. Or I like to say we're giving them life, giving them energy. And those type of plays right there, away, on the road, hostile environment, you just get the crowd, you get the momentum going the opposite way. And those are things we can control, I believe.
Yeah.
And the same goes for offense and defense. We'll get into that in a little bit. But those are the things you want to see, tightened up. That was my main thing. Like, we got to tighten up.
Well, yeah, I'll say this. I think, first off, I want to give PJ Fleck and his guys a ton of credit. He came in with a really good game plan. They executed. I thought Brosmer played really well. I thought he made some really good anticipatory throws. He threw that pick early, but it didn't really bother him. He still kept swinging. They ran the ball really well.
They did.
And then defensively, they put us in a lot of shitty situations. I mean, we were 1 for 11 on third down. And again, let's get to that later. But big picture, broad stroke. I want to give a big tip of the cap to PJ.
Yeah, you have to. And that team. And we knew that coming in.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. And you and I did talk about that. We talked about if they're not going to be afraid. So if we let them play with us, and that's subsequently to me exactly what we did. 5,000 foot view, watching the way we played. We talked about at the end of the year, you need to be playing your best football. You need to peak, all the mistakes, all those little things that you had to get cleaned up. Really good teams at this point in the year, that's kind of out of their system and they're in a groove. And we had given they had given me such a good feel when they did it against Washington, when they did it against Purdue. And now it was another opportunity against a little bit of a better team. Or a better team, better overall team that had some mishaps and tough schedule, but a better team, but still a team that if we come out and play our best ball, we handle by, I think, at least 2 touchdowns. Yeah. And, we just started slow on offense. Defense, we just couldn't really – it just felt weird. Splash plays, they had a great plan to kind of eliminate Abdul. I mean, I talked about how big of a game he had last week. For me at least, relatively quiet. I haven't looked at the official numbers, but it just watching the game, you didn't be oh shit, 11 plays.
They kind of took the fight straight to him, but we'll get into that defense.
Yeah, and I'll let you dive into that. But then it just seemed like slow start, lackadaisical, got punched in the mouth, and really never got the stars out. Even the whole game. I mean, we had some gumption, especially in the last drive. Fortunately, we did enough to keep each other or keep us in it all around. But it just felt like it was a really bad product for this time of year and all the momentum they had coming into it. So it kind of gives me, again, just a little bit of pause when I'm talking about a potential playoff matchup. And even this week against Maryland, you and I both know Maryland's always got athletes on that roster.
There's always bad blood.
Yeah, always bad blood. They want this game bad. Locks wants this game bad. So it's just one of those things. It gives me a little bit of a pause, and I'm still gonna, spoiler alert again, I'm still gonna say exactly what I've said the previous 4 weeks. I told you at the beginning of this stretch, I think it's about us and about playing our best ball and starting fast and doing all those things. But I was shocked with how slow it looked. I was just it just looked like we were sleepwalking out there.
Yeah. Definitely had that same feeling. And it really brought me back to everything you just said, brought me back to the Bowling Green game where it's all right, coming out slow, this squad is making plays, and didn't know much about Bowling Green. You come to find out, they've got some guys and a great coach. And it's very similar to your point of hey, end of the season, playing against, talk about playoff opponents, this is not going to end well for us if we keep kind of showing this, coming out the gate, because – at some point, we're going to dig ourselves into a hole that we can't get out of. Maybe just run out of time. But, with that being said, I kind of saying things if we just tighten up, we will win this game. And it got scary because We had made some strides, and then they come back and they special teams blunder. That drive right before halftime was big in my confidence. I felt very good about that, and I think we turned around and they blocked the extra point. But
we turned a 6-point play into a 4-point play.
Yeah. But that drive, nonetheless, even coming after the trick play, after the block punt, I was like, Minnesota scored too quick. It was a great play on there. And I'm sure they had that in the bag ready. It was a great spot in the field for the trick play, triple pass, whatever you call it.
Triple field special is what it was.
Yeah. But I think that we had about a minute left. And I've seen us do that. And this is where the confidence comes along. It's like, okay, I've seen us go full throttle, 2-minute drill, whatever, minute drill, get down the field, score 6, at least get a field goal. So that helped my confidence. Yeah. But then once again, we like we said, lackluster attention to detail, boom, extra point. And it's like, those are the things, like you said, you lose a little bit of, security when it goes into playing, these teams that we hope to be playing in a few weeks here. So, but
yeah, it's just one of those things too. Like you can't, and I know you and I were guilty of it as players because we probably talked about it in the locker room. But like we talked about how like, we'll be all right when we play so and so. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but now like the older, wiser, like Christian sits there and goes like all the shit that my high school coach and every coach that I played for said, like, nah, it doesn't work that way. Like I'm becoming a believer. I don't know if it's just this weird like old man juice now that I'm sipping on, but it's like that there's really something to that. Like, like you can't be a gamer. Like you can't be a gamer in big games. Like you have to still execute even against lesser opponents. And it's just funny because you see that even at the highest level. You see that in the NFL. You see like the Chiefs with the Panthers, like they let them back into it. And it's just like, you see it every week at every level. And it's something like you're kind of always in the pursuit of, but I don't know if it's really attainable to do it super consistently. And when it does happen, those are like those magical teams that we talk about. Right. So like, is it really even fair to hold somebody to that standard? I don't know, but I do still think that like as a coaching staff, you can't really like let your players get away with like, it's cool. Like we got away with it. We sweated it out, but like, I can't wait until we see Georgia or I can't wait until we see Indiana. Like, nah, you got to now sit here and lock in a little bit with Maryland, and like play with the same attention to detail. You know what I'm saying? Like if the reaction was more of like, nah, fuck that. Like it wasn't our best ball. Like we can't be doing that stuff. Like if we do that against XYZ, like that's going to be an ass whooping. Like that's one of then that's a completely different way to look through the same lens. And I think that's a little bit more of a mature way to look through that lens, if that makes sense. But
no, 100%. And I give a lot of credit to Franklin in that perspective. Like you said, how we see it now, because we definitely were those guys like, best believe I'll be ready for, so-and-so, this school, Ohio State, Michigan, whatever. But the Indianas of the world, at least when we were playing, they were good every other year. But, the teams where it's like you may not give too much thought to, they can get you. And I give Franklin a lot of credit to the whole 1-0 mentality. So that's where I kind of picked that up from. It's like, hey, let's just be where our feet are right now. We've got this team. Let's lock in and attention to detail the same way we do it any other week for X, Y, and Z school. But we got to bring it the same consistency. But that's one of those things, like you said, not until probably a few years removed from being a Penn State player and under coach, where I kind of was like, okay, I start to see it now. I understand it a little more now, everything that they preach and try to instill in us. But as a young kid, it's hard.
Yeah, I also don't want to walk it back, like, because I've been such a proponent of like raising the floor and like kind of not getting rid of the 1-0 mentality, but like making that more of like the expectation and then like being able to look ahead to the bigger opponents. And that's why I want to make it clear that my statement earlier about that was not backtracking. Rather, it was saying the perspective of which and the verbiage and the mental mindset of which you approach that needs to be different. Like like I said, like, I think like the loser mentality is like, oh, well, I'll get up for so-and-so instead of like being mad that you didn't play the way you wanted. Like I remember this my sophomore year. I'll use anecdotal. like my sophomore year, we come off that Ireland win. We come home, we play Akron, and we kind of like low key struggled. And it wasn't a struggle, but it was like one of those games where like we were doing what we want to do, we weren't finishing, and it ended up like dragging out to the third quarter, and then I threw 2 or 3 touchdowns to Jesse James, and then like we ended up running. But I was like fucking pissed the whole game. Like I was mad as fuck because it just wasn't what we should have been doing, and in the manner in which I thought we could have done it. You know, people were trying to tell me like, hey, like what, like smile, like, you know, we won. And I'm like, no. Like it's a different lens, if that makes sense. And I remember I got beat up about that from some folks internally within the program about like my attitude towards that. But I just wish I never let that really affect me, because I think I think the way I was looking at it was the right way to look at it. Like, and I think that's the right way for this team to continue to approach it. Is like that's not acceptable against Minnesota. Like,
to be and go where we want to go. Be the type of team that we talk about every year and compare ourselves to every year within the conference. That is the mindset you have to have. It's like, okay, I'm like, you know, I love the quote, you know, I'm never going to downplay a win, but at the same time, we have, like you said, we have to hold ourselves to a better standard if we want to be the team that we truly see ourselves being. So that's definitely true. I see that tenfold as well. I mean, to your point, the whole 1-0 thing is great. But even within that, we can raise the bar and the standard of what goes into that 1 week, you know,
what
every
that 1-0
week
looks like.
Every week, because once again, to be the squad that we want to be this year and the years to come, you know, that has to continue. The bar has to continually rise, excuse me. But let's get into this.
Let's go into defense. Let's go into defense. What do you see? Because I don't want to, like I said, I kind of gave my 5,000 foot view earlier, and I don't really want to get super into it from there. But like, I'll let you run with the defense. We'll hit the Z-Bart, and then we'll get into the offense. But what'd you see?
I mean, just once again, from a top view, it's still the little things to me that is, and the same thing we just said about special teams and the overall perspective of the game is like, you know, you give a good team, well-coached team, a tough, well-coached, ready to go for blood team, no matter the skill, quality, whatever you want to call it, you give them an inch, they're gonna, you know, take advantage. It's still Power 5 football here. And I feel like we do that occasionally with just simple mistakes, missed tackles. You know, it's so crazy. I think we lead the nation in tackles for loss. And if we make 90% of the plays, say we make 80 right now, we'd like be tenfold above everyone, 2 times above everyone. I see it so many times, you know, a play can go for a tackle for loss, and then somehow, you know, whiff of a tackle, not everyone getting to the ball, then they get 4, then they get 5. And it's like, dang, if we make those plays, we're reaching that elite status. And I think we can. We just got to, you know, just tighten up. The athletic ability is there. And that's kind of the main thing, honestly. I mean, they made plays. They, like you said, well schemed. You know, they're gonna run the ball straight down your throat. And we made plays against it. They made plays. I'm kind of over, you know, going back and forth about the D line and how things go, because we've seen it. You know, it's teeter totter. You know, they have a 10-yard run and then we tackle them for loss for 5, and that goes throughout the game. So
I thought the only thing, like, from that perspective that I saw a few times that, like, I guess you could say, like, jumped out to me was, like, just the same thing, like, gap discipline. Like, I feel like we got caught 2 guys in a gap a bunch. And it resulted in some gashes in the run game. And it was just like, it was more so than like the once or twice in a game where it was like, like, you know, we did a creative stunt and we just got washed, you know, got caught. Like, that's, you know, great play by the O-line. Like, it really wasn't even that. It was like, I just felt like we fucking just hit it way too fucking hard, and it just washed into one, and then a huge gash on the back end of it.
And that's what I mean by, like, you know, you look at the stat book, like, oh, this team rushed for this on us. And it's like, okay, kudos to them. But if you really analyze the play, like I'm sure these guys are doing, Sundays, Mondays, it's like, if we play and we're aligned the assignment correctly, that 10-yard, 15 run goes for 3 the way it should. If we make the tackle, if we set the edge, keep our outside shoulder arm clean, like we're coached to do, like we do every week, you know, that play that should have been tackled for loss again doesn't go for a first down on 3rd and 3 when they need it. And it's still those simple, not really too much, not really too in depth for me at least. Because, some plays, zone coverage is still not necessarily our best quality, but that quarterback was putting on there, anticipatory throws, so you give him that. They had a tough O-line, and kind of getting to that dual point, that was kind of their equalizers. Hey, we're going to run the ball right at you, which not every team can do, so kudos to them for that. They had like a massive tight end, really kind of power scheming right at the kind of best talent, which you see a lot. And that's something he's going to have to get used to at this level, moving forward, however long that is, and in the league. Von Millers of the world, the quicker, really twitchy guys, they deal with that all the time, especially if you're not like the Myles Garretts of the world where you're 6'5", 260,
You're fucking avatar.
Yeah. So they'll kind of try to take that quickness away from you, which they had a good game plan, I'm not going to lie. And the main thing I'd say I'm disappointed in, and kind of goes into the half sleep kind of way we came into the game. I didn't think we were flying around as much as we've seen. A lot of those plays I'm talking about, it could have been tackled for loss. If there's 2-3 more hats there the way there should be, the standard that they play to, those plays won't be made. And so I think that's just an effort, tenacity thing. I'm sure Minnesota was blocking their ass off, probably grabbing and holding, but that's no excuse. I told my nephew that the same thing. They had a little game today, and it's like, you got to get off blocks, man. I don't care what they're doing. Coach don't care. Get to the ball, and good things will happen. That was kind of one thing I think we lacked the most. But, with criticism, got to give praise because we still make plays, man. The guys are flying around. A few different names this week. Transitioning to our Z-Bart Defensive Play of the Week. Penn State versus at Minnesota.
What do we got?
Goes to our guy, Dom DeLuca. I think he's got a mustache just like you if he if he didn't grow it out. But I'm going to transition to this play, man. Great play. Play action punch out from our linebacker. This is what you go through every week. Gets underneath the deep crossing route and gets a great pick six right when we needed it, to be honest. You see him here, number 0. Look at that. Look at that. Turns his face, looks up the route, gets underneath it. And lo and behold, Coach always said, catch the ones they throw to you. He did just that. And got a nice shifty return for the boys in white.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't know his hip game was like that, bro. I mean, he
did
pretty good. You can't really see it there, but I've seen a different, like a good angle of it. Or not a good I've seen a different angle of it. Like he really did a good job looking that up too.
I just want to pinpoint the depth in which he got. He's at the 40. Yeah. Where's he catch this ball? 50, 53 or 40, whatever, flip the ball. That's about 10, 13 yards of depth, and that's what you need. A lot of NFL linebackers, you get this because it's coached all the time. Obviously, the routes and quarterbacks are better. But in college, you see a lot of time guys, punch out. They get up maybe 4 or 3 yards in depth, and that's when those routes are open behind you. You really punch out, especially look up the route. You can't get any better than that. Dom DeLuca with the Z-Bart Defensive Play of the Week. Great interception, great return. Shout out to LBU, baby. LBUs make the plays.
Yeah. And folks, Z-Bart Defensive Play of the Week, your vehicle's best defense, as we talked about in the open. Anything you're looking for with your car's needs, detailing, interior, the whole nine, they'll take care of you. Make sure you guys holler at Z-Bart. We appreciate them supporting the pocket, and make sure that you look into them to protect one of your biggest investments that you probably made, which is your vehicle. So, B, great job. That was mine as well this week, so I'm happy we were on the same page.
Shout out to Dom, baby.
Great play for the Italian Stallion.
I love a new face too in the Z-Bart, making plays. We've had a few reoccurring names, which is great. But I love a fresh face making plays, man.
Yeah. Well, let's get over to the offensive side of the ball. I'll try to make this quick because I think we should probably talk about specifically the last portion of this game and how it was handled. But listen, 1 for 11 on third down. I thought Drew played a relatively efficient game, missed some things, made some other throws. You had Tyler Warren. They did everything they could to try to get him out of the game. Still was able to go for 8 and 102 yards, 8 receptions, 102 yards. The guy I want to talk about a little bit is Nick Singleton. I felt like, weirdly enough, it wasn't Tyler Warren making those like gotta have it plays for us. It was 10 this week, which we kind of talked about like another guy emerging as a threat for us and how we can use him creatively in space and, just kind of around the football in different ways, like not necessarily traditional, like straight line inline running back stuff, but like being able to get him the football, whether it be in the passing game, whatever. And I think, he's going to be a guy that we got to lean on more and more. So I want to give kudos to 10, just timely plays, if that makes sense. He wasn't necessarily toting that thing, as probably efficiently as he wanted to. And then all of a sudden he rips off one for 9. That was big. That put us in a position to be able to go for it on fourth, like running through arm tackles, capturing an edge, like just trusting it. So give him a lot of credit. But overall, like I thought you had some good individual performances, but they didn't really amount to much. Your big plays came from Amari Evans on the big shot play, things like that. So I just think like as good as they've been from an efficiency standpoint, 1 for 11 on third down is terrible. They had themselves in really bad situations too. A lot of them were 3rd and 8 plus, a couple 3rd and 13s in there. As a guy who probably lived in that more than he should have when he was playing at Penn State, those are not fun. So to kind of wipe that, like I said, I think it was good. Good to be able to overcome that and keep it a football game. And do you have anything to add before I get into this? I didn't want to jump in, but like that's kind of what I saw offensively. It was a lot of guys, really good performances, but it never really like meshed up great. But they did enough to keep it within bounds, and they made plays ultimately when they needed to.
Yeah, I'll hit you with 2 questions, and if one goes into it more in depth, and just go with the flow and keep going. But shout out to Nick Singleton, great game. And like you said, using his hands out the backfield, timely catches, those. And as more I study quarterbacks and watch the pros and so forth, I hear it all the time, like, hey, check your check down. It's okay. Check it down. I see it on Sunday. Caleb Williams had a few chances. Just check it down. Don't take the sack. And Drew can do better than that. But chucking it down to Nick, letting him run for a first down on 2nd or 3rd, it pays dividends. Obviously, we want the deep throws. We want the splash plays, but let's live to fight another down. So shout out to Nick. And that's just great quality running back play, extending his kind of repertoire. Don't just be one-dimensional running back. But the 2 questions I'll hit you with. And this is something my dad's always said. My dad's a basketball guy. He learned football as I got to Penn State. And so he doesn't, per se know the game that well, or he didn't at least. But I go to the touchdown I talked about right before half, 1-minute drill, pedal to the metal, the urgency, the time management, timely throws. What is it? I'm asking you, obviously, quarterback offense, because my dad will always say, why can't we do that the whole game, right? And I try to tell him, it's situational, one, but to some point, I do understand what he's saying. It's like that sense of urgency we had. It doesn't have to be necessarily hurry up offense, but what is it about that situation compared to the regular offensive drives that we don't get that same momentum and rhythm?
It's tough, man. It's kind of one of those things that you really can't put your finger on, because as you were asking me that question, I was trying to think just introspectively as well from experiences. It's hard, bro. Like sometimes you're in a rut no matter what. Can't get right when you're trying to get right, and then you just speed things up and you make it reactionary, and it's not necessarily thought out. It's the best space for athletes to be in, but it's really hard to trust athletes to be in that space at all times, if that makes sense. So I think like,
great point. I get that.
I think like that's a fair point where it's like, as well as that went, I think it was because they might have been overthinking too much, and it just got them in a space where it was like, okay, like I can breathe, like just what's the worst that could happen? And then it was just very reactionary. It was subconscious. It was just go, bang, 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 boom. And you did what you needed to do.
Yeah.
to be able to put it into words like why you can't, like that's a question that I think every fan who's never been in those shoes asks. Mm-hmm. And I know you probably feel it too. Like on defense, you're like, shit's not going right for 3 quarters. And all of a sudden the last quarter, it just is like everything starts going right. And then you just start hooping. Like, it's just one of those things, like you see it go through the net once and it's like, all right, cool. Boom, 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 boom. No matter how many times you miss before that, doesn't matter. You're not even thinking about it. So I hope that answers it. I think it's just really one of those things. It's like, it's a weird, you can't coach it, can't teach it. It just kind of happens. Like, it's like that magical in the air kind of mojo shit that happens sometimes.
I think you articulated that perfectly. Better than I could ever answer. But yeah, it's the perfect space for an athlete to be in, but you can't necessarily trust the athletes to be in that the whole game. So I get that.
Yeah.
I had another question, but I forget. I'll let you rip into your offense.
That's cool. Well, that's kind of what I had on offense. I think we got to be better against Maryland. I think we will be better against Maryland. At home, senior night. I want to talk about that. Like, senior night was such a big thing for us just because of what we went through when we were there. It was always about just like making sure that these guys had the best experience, best day they could humanly possibly have, or like the last game of the season, whatever it was. So big shout out for the boys for this, and hopefully they come out with a great attention to detail, great focus, because they do got a lot now kind of at their fingertips, like you said, and we kind of hinted at with the way the weekend shook out this past weekend, and then what's still left to be played. There's still some stuff that could really happen that could, if Penn State continues to win, they can put themselves in a position where it's going to be irrefutable to where they land and how it goes, how it shakes out. So, but with that being said, the biggest point of the game, I think the one that fans were talking about the most, the beat's been talking about the most, and what I've seen, and you and I can obviously talk about this experientially as well. Like, the way Coach approached that last series starting with the fake punt. And Jason and I talked about this after the game on the post-game radio show. He's like, I've seen this so many times. Like, we don't do that. Yeah. And I want to talk about it like a little bit more nitty-gritty here. Like, for the first time in Coach's career, I think up there that I can really put a finger on, he said, fuck the statistics, and I'm going with what my balls tell me. Like, he was just like, I'm going with the gut feeling of what needs to fucking happen here. And the guys made the plays, and I think they fed off that. Yeah. It was like, it started with the fake punt in your own territory, and then it went to the 4th down. They got the first 4th down, and I was like, ballsy. Yeah. Then they fucking can kick a field goal, go up 4 with like 20 seconds left, and force Minnesota to have to score a touchdown. And he's like, nah, fuck that. We're going for it again. Like, it was like Dan Campbell-esque. And it was like an out-of-body experience for me. Not saying that, like, I just haven't seen Coach do that in those situations. And it was like, it was surprising in like the best way. Like, I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like,
I'm glad you brought up Dan Campbell. That's exactly where my mind went. I've heard Jason has spoken on this. And exactly your point, we haven't necessarily seen that, but not just about the decision. It's about the quickness and the aggressiveness and like lackadaisical per se of the decision. Wasn't like a timeout. Let's think about it. Nah. Yeah, it was, blink of an eye. This is what we're going to do. Let's run it. Obviously, they've practiced that. And that's, I think, the confidence that reverts through the team, as I've heard from Jason about Coach Campbell. And it's like, bro, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to get this first down. We need this first down first and foremost. We need it. So we're going to do anything we need to do to win this game. So split decision, let's go. And boom, there you go. It caught everyone off guard. Clearly, obviously, Minnesota. I don't think anyone that says they had a feeling we'd fake it there, I call bullshit. Yeah. I call bullshit.
There's nothing to tell you that we would have done that.
Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, defense, we gotta step up, but so fake punt, and shout out to Rook, taking it. And what was that, 40, 50-yard play, flipping the field. I mean, it's one thing to call the fake. We still got to execute it. We've seen that time in and time out, offense, defense. You can have a great call, but the boys on the field have to execute. And boy, did they. So big shout out to everyone on that play. we had great blocks, pancaking dudes on that block and letting the rook run and get loose. So, and that was a big play, man, obviously. And then taking it down to that next fourth down, like you said, still ballsy, man. I don't mind that one. Our kicker's been great. So
just the special teams juju.
Yeah, I don't know if Franklin was watching, somebody was in his ear, but what was going on around the country. But obviously, one blocked field goal or extra point through the game. I like that call as well. And Drew, once again, executing. For a second, I thought he was panicking. Feet got a little, but he found his guy, T. Warren. I saw him kind of delay release on the broadcast view, and I thought he was going to be wide open for a touchdown. I thought that was the play design, but when I saw Drew start to kind of scramble, I'm like, oh, shoot, he's not looking. Oh, no.
He's looking front side.
Yeah. But nonetheless, he found him. Psycho T with the selfless play. Doesn't take it in for 6, goes down, kills the clock. Either way, they connected, man, out of all their great connections so far this year, that was the biggest one.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, man. And like I said, I think the best part about it is he said, fuck the numbers, and went with his gut. Mm-hmm. And I think the guys, there's a little bit of that where it's like, as a player, love that.
Yeah.
I love I don't want to hear about if we go 70% on third down, if we go this percentage on this, and if we win this match of the game percentage and this and that, because we got our ass kicked in the time of possession. I mean, Minnesota had, I think it was 11 minutes on us almost on the time of possession.
Yeah.
So, didn't have a ton of opportunities either. And I'm so sorry that I let that slip until now, 40-something minutes into this. But I just love that it wasn't a statistical decision. Yeah. It was like, I'm feeling it in my plums. Yeah. And I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna die on it. And the conviction in which the decision was made, like you said, it was the most surprising thing I've seen, I think, in coach's tenure for me, in one of the least expected moments. Yeah. And I think it's going to bode really, really well for the remainder of his tenure, however long that is here, being able to start making decisions like that, having the confidence to make decisions like that, because I think that's what it takes. Like we kind of talked about, what does it take to break that glass ceiling? It's doing things that you haven't done.
Yep.
Leading by example from the top.
You want more, you have to do more.
Tip of the cap, Chief. Yeah. Great job.
Yeah. Tip of the cap to everyone. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Coach. Well deserved. Yeah. He definitely catches his fair amount of yeah. So not taking anything away from him, but it still goes towards him. Is the execution. Yeah. Because we know that at the end of the day, nothing matters. The rhetoric is totally different if the guys don't execute. If we fall short of that fourth down, it's what the fuck were you doing, Coach Franklin?
Yeah.
But like we said, obviously they've coached that up. They practiced that. The swiftness of the decision to go and execute that play, that's what we need down in and down out on all 3 phases of the game.
Yep.
And that's the level that will, mixed in with like you said, the cojones of making decisions that way. That confidence reverberates throughout the team to go execute. That is what will take us to the levels we want to reach, man. But like you said, cap off to the program. The program for that play, that drive. And I just wanted to finish off with, and that's the beauty of the game of football, is why you can't get caught up in the numbers, because the numbers that tell you to do this and do that, like you said, our third down conversion rate was horrendous. Coach Flack kind of talked about his press conference, like, hey, we did everything we needed to do. Time of possession, so forth and so forth, turnovers, block field goals, block punts, and still come up short, because the game of football comes down to moments like that where you got to execute, got to have balls, and you got to live and die on that decision and that play and play ball. And then for also the other fourth downs in that drive. So that should be a big confidence boost to the guys, and just to show them through the criticism we gave through this pod is like, look, we're not necessarily full throttle shooting 100% to our capabilities, but we're good enough to get it done. Now we put it all together, like you said, where we want to be, take the win, be happy, but we played the way we want to play. That's a double-digit victory, and we know we can do it because we're watching the tape. We see where we need to make strides, and I just continue to pray and hope that they see that within themselves, coaching staff included. You know, and I'll leave it at that, man. Dub to dub, unscathed, on the road in the Big Ten, no small feat, man. That's a big deal.
Big deal, especially with a couple West Coast trips. Good stuff. Listen, let's hit a little Maryland and then get to the mailbag here. Expectation for Maryland, I'll start it off. Like I said, got to be playing your best ball this time of year. That happened. We talked about it. It's out of our system. Now it goes back to the expectation is to raise that floor of what that 1-0 exactly is each week. Mm-hmm. And with the craziness that happened around the country, I think this is going to people are still going to point it out, but I think you come out, handle business against Maryland, and then let the chips fall as they may. Might get an opportunity for a Big Ten championship game, might not, but you put yourself in the best position possible with a slip up against Ohio State that you humanly possibly could. Yeah. So I just think more of the same in terms of what to expect from Maryland. Like, go out there and dominate. They should. And do it for the seniors.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, big weekend, last hurrah, possibly actually, for the seniors in Nittany Stadium. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of emotions, a lot of contingencies, what could happen, what may happen. That's what coach and the coaching staff has to do. And the guys themselves have to lock in on that whole, like you said, 1-0, but take it to another level mentally, physically, and be ready for their best shot. They are going to come out swinging, hold nothing back, trick plays, fake punts, fake everything. Bad blood already between this, feud, I won't call it a rivalry. Best believe they need it just as much as we need it. And just kind of come out and expect nothing but everything at the same time. And you should be able to handle business against this squad. They've struggled, but they have athletes. They're going to take their shot. So be ready to make plays and let the chips fall where they may as far as everything else that could possibly happen. But like you said, handle business. Everything's right there, man. And that's tough for our younger dudes when everything's right there, but you gotta put the shades on, just focus on what's in front of you, and we'll like where we're at. So I'm excited for this one. A lot of Maryland guys on the squad, going to be playing against a lot of their boys, high school boys. Like I said, this is one about bragging rights. This is the type of game I love because, like I said, they're going to come out swinging, and this is the one they're going to talk about. No matter what the records are, the guys that no guys on the team are going to be talking about this game for a while. So let's make it a tough conversation. Yeah, come on, Mo.
Come on, Mo.
Shout out to the DMV boys. Shoot, recruiting battles. If you want to add everything else onto that, there's a lot of boys in Maryland watching this game. It's like, okay, let's see how each team handles himself. But
love it.
Let's get it done, man. All right. Let's get this mailbag. We got the mailbag going.
Let's get the mailbag. We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit it quick. We do appreciate you. It was good. Yeah. Good feedback. But unfortunately, B's got a baby. I got my brother's in town. I haven't seen him since January. So last January.
Word.
Let's hit this, and we'll make sure we get another one out again. Let's go GVL Minimalist on Instagram. Do we have what it takes in the trenches to make a serious run? The O-line just doesn't seem to be dominant. Same story, different year.
I will say we have not been dominating in the nature of which I would like to see. I think I don't know what the numbers say, but I think we may have been a little bit better a year or two ago. And that kind of goes into our third down conversations we were talking about. I think we're better on first down, which I know the guys are hearing, coaches everywhere say it, we'll like where we're at on those third down situations, not in the situations that Hack spoke on that he dealt with probably more than he should have. So I think maybe I'm a homer, but we're finding a way. And I think outside of, obviously we need a run game, I think it's going to come down to Drew and the guys on the outside, Tyler, Singleton, and really, making plays on the outside on the perimeter.
Yeah, I think we are good enough. The only thing that does scare me is how well, because I haven't seen us call a lot of it, but how well we can execute like quick passing game, protect that up, mix in, halfback screen, mix in draw, mix in these things that can help alleviate against potentially like, I saw it early. I don't know if it's a potential matchup any longer, but there's, again, a lot of football to be played, like a Tennessee. Like a Tennessee's defensive line and edge rushers scare me against our O-line if we get put in a situation where we have to throw the ball 30 times.
Right. You don't want to be in that.
So it's like, obviously no one wants to be in that situation. Obviously every O-line is going to struggle in that situation with today's athletes. But I just think like I haven't seen us do a lot to alleviate those things because we haven't really necessarily been in that moment. So it's just like one of those things, like I don't want to see us in that situation because I haven't seen us execute, to your point, on the outside like we needed to. I think we're going to be able to be efficient enough in the run game. I think if we stick to it and we stay in a good situation, we can be even explosive enough, like kind of like that Saquon, like, hey, 2, 3, 4, 40. You know what I mean? I think Nick provides not that, but a similar type of explosion. Yeah. And I think Coach K's done a good job of mixing the perimeter with the interior and the mid zone rushing game and stuff like that. So I do think we have the potential to pop it, but listen, we're not as like Michigan dominant, but I think we're good enough. We're deep enough to get the job done.
Yeah. And just on top of that, this is the time to this point in this question where I think I'd like the Bo package or the Bo running the show for a series, not just coming for a play. And I know it's probably contradictory to what I said about Drew and getting his rhythm. It's depending on the flow of the game because obviously Bo brings a different element, whether he's keeping the ball and running it himself or not, of just necessarily freezing everyone for a split second to allow these blocks to develop a split second longer to where a Singleton or a K-Tron can pop one, or Bo can obviously keep it, things of that nature. So I think Coach K knows that, and I'd look out for that these next few games when they matter.
Yep. Let's get I'm gonna pick one out from my guy Coker because he dropped 3 on us here.
Coke. Appreciate it.
Yep, always. Okay, let's go. If we beat Maryland, who do you guys want to see Penn State facing in the first round? Who do we match up best against? I'll start with laying out what I've seen. I've seen Georgia. I've seen now Indiana most recently. I've seen Notre Dame in the past. B, missing anybody?
Just out of those ones, I can't say I pay attention to a lot of those projections, but I like Notre Dame. That's obviously Penn State, Notre Dame, historical, classical, games in the past. I'm not sure when was the last year we saw that, so that would be pretty cool to see the Golden Domers.
Maybe even late 80s.
Yeah. I mean, we played Georgia.
No, we played them in the 2000s too, at home. I think.
Yeah. I think I've seen some highlights. I think that was
Whiteout. I think it was a whiteout.
But I'd say Notre Dame, the Golden Domers. I like to see them. That matchup. And they picked things up. I like that coach a lot. I didn't think they'd make it back after that loss, but early enough, played some good ball, great ball. So I'll say Notre Dame.
Yeah, I echo that just for the nostalgia and great uniform game. If it was, it'd be a fantastic uniform game.
But those fan bases, I think every playoff fan base will travel well, but I know for sure.
Well, I mean, you're pinning every Irish Catholic in the state of Pennsylvania against every Penn State fan, dude. I mean, that would be there's a lot of Notre Dame people in Pennsylvania, so
Jersey
they would definitely
travel
in Jersey. Listen, I think that's one from a matchup standpoint. I don't know. Golden, maybe Al Golden coming home, being a little fired up about that. DC over there.
Where's he? He's at Notre Dame.
Yeah, DC. But yeah, I don't like the Indiana matchup, if that makes sense. I would hate it to be a Big Ten team. Yeah. And part of me almost wants to see an SEC squad come up there. Mm-hmm. Like that time of year, like all the banter back and forth. I would love to see an SEC team come up there December 20th, 21st, whatever it's going to be. Mm-hmm. It's going to be cold as balls. It's going to be electric. And just kind of spread because I've been to both cultures. I've been to games at both places. I've obviously played at one. Like I think the Big Ten as a whole respects the SEC. I don't think the SEC respects the Big Ten.
Yeah, definitely not.
So I think it would be cool to see an SEC team come up there at that point in time. But we'll see.
Just on that point, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but shout out to UMass, man. I know there's a lot of conversation. They put up 28-21.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about what Penn State could or couldn't do against the Georgia team. So shout out to the Minutemen, man.
Yeah. Minutemen, the fighting Brenneman 2.0. Man, there's a lot of good ones here. I'll hit one more. It's kind of a repetitive conversation, but I think it'd be a good one to end on because I do have a few points. Coming into the season, we had a question at wide receiver position. Has hurt us bad in big games throughout the year. I mean, the tight end Tyler Warren is leading our receivers in every single category, not taking anything away from the guy. He's an absolute animal, but I just feel like it highlights the weakness at wide receiver even more. I believe in this team, just need somebody to step up at wide out and show out in the playoffs. That is from Jay Newhouser on Instagram. B, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'll take a point you made. This might have been after Ohio State before. I don't think it's definitely not the strongest part of our offense, but I think that the possibilities are there with opportunities. And I think a point you made, this might have been off camera, or so you give the guy opportunity, your whole perspective could change about any name you want to name on the outside. So I have confidence in the guys. Obviously, against the top dog in this conference, our best team we played, the numbers weren't great. But hey, in my football player mind, that game was that game. Whoever comes in, we got to play it like it's a new day, and the opportunities need to be there. And some of that comes down to Drew making the throws, even if putting it in a window or a spot to where your guy can grab it. We've seen him do that. He's getting better at that. And that just comes with, taking your shots when you got them, taking a one-on-one when you got it. And a guy will surprise you. I'll take our chances because we're going to need it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The one thing I liked about this week, I'll be honest with you, that I saw, we threw some free access hitches. Like, we just took some easy ones. And you saw Trey Wallace made some plays with that. Amari Evans, obviously, with the big one. But I think that's something, again, and like I'm saying it now, I said it earlier in one of my answers, but just like the quick game, like throwing some slants, like throwing some things, some drags, like things that are getting guys moving, pretty easy, like day one routes. If you're a Division I receiver, you can win on, you're not asking them to go and like beat them on something crazy that, takes stair stepping and getting in the blind spot. And just beat them on a slant, bro. Like just go play outside ball. Like just go beat them on a slant. Like maybe getting some of that stuff early in a game, I think could be a way to get them going. And then subsequently something I talked about also this week with some folks, like figuring out ways how to use like your best players, right? Like, okay, cool. Like say what you want to say about the receiver room. I still think those guys are capable, just haven't had a ton of opportunities. I'm sure there's a reason those opportunities haven't been handed to them, but I'm not going to dive too far into that. But like get Nick Singleton out there. Like, I mean, at least if he gets the ball in space, like he can make some big shit happen with it. Like use your best football players on your team to get them the football in space, however you need to do it, and do it in a manner in which alleviates a lot of the pressure points that come from trying to throw the ball down the field and like need to throw it down the field situations.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of different creative ways to do it. I think Coach K probably has been thinking about that a lot. Don't want to speak for the man, but I expect some of that stuff to start coming out, especially in these like win or go home situations. And we'll see how it goes. But that's what I got. And then I'll just give a shout out to my guy Kerry KElba87 on X. Tourney time, survive, and advance. I would categorize even this Maryland game as that. Got to win it. Got to win it. Yeah. Tourney time, survive, and advance. I love it. All right, B. Well, that was a good episode. I thought it was really good. I thought we really wrapped, kind of encapsulated this whole thing well. And we will be back next week after Maryland, senior night, 3:30 kick. See what the boys got.
I like it, man. Appreciate you guys once again for the mailbag. We'll be back. Gotta keep this going through the big ones, but gotta survive first. And happy Thanksgiving.
Actually, I screwed this up. We're gonna get our guy Farzad. I totally forgot about him. He hit us in the middle of the week. Yeah. Farziness. Do you think NIL is creating an environment where super talented teams are underperforming because student athletes get complacent from getting rich so early relatively to the usual path to the NFL? Alternatively, do you think this drives less talented teams to be much more?
It's tough to say without being in the locker room, being one of these kids, or just observing how it's going down. But I think that's a fair statement to say. I mean,
money does change everything.
Yeah, that's my point. Money changes everything.
Getting super rich either. They're definitely getting super rich compared to college lifestyle.
And it's similar to the NFL where you see big numbers across Twitter and online, but that's the 1-2% of a roster that may be getting that. But
I'd say 1 or 2% of the roster is probably making league minimum or slightly more.
Yeah. But to your point and then the opposite of lesser teams, smaller schools, whatever you want to call it, doesn't quite bring in that same NIL. I could see them having some angst, some, more going into a game is like, okay, these guys think they're this, they've got this, we don't have that. So maybe it's an added motivation. It's just tough to say, but I think with more, cash in your pocket brings more resources too. The part I think a lot of people don't see. I know a lot of guys are taking care of their bodies better than they ever have before outside of the facilities with an extra income, going and training and meeting this physiologist and all the stuff that the pros do, honestly, which is pretty cool, taking care of their bodies. And there's other things that they're doing outside, meeting with different trainers. And so there's two sides to the coin. I obviously people think of the negative first, but, you can always do a lot more with more in your pocket. So it's a good question, though. But it's fair to say that money changes everything.
It does. I think once the revenue sharing comes into it, it'll kind of put some reins on it, some tampering on it. I think, they opened up Pandora's box, though. I mean, it's going to happen. It's here. To your point, I think that there's positives that don't really get talked about. I think the negatives are probably the loudest girls in the room. So they're going to get the most attention. But there is a lot of good stuff coming out of NIL.
And the family aspect.
Yeah, I would point out our guy Nick Dawkins is doing a lot of great stuff. I love that kid. So really cool to see just success stories of NIL and what it's bringing to the table. But there probably definitely is, and I think you bring up a fair point as well. I think it would be not fair for us to talk about it having not been in the locker room because, again, there's also personal sides of it too where certain guys may be doing it, but, you play with guys in the league who make a ton of money who are still, like, down to earth. You play with other guys in the league who are, like, make a ton of money, and it's like, I wouldn't go drink a beer with that dude if you fucking paid me to. So it's just like there's still a lot that goes into it, but it's here to stay. And I think just continuing to your point, put good resources around guys, show them the opportunities they have, and go from there is super important. Maybe Farzad should put something together for that. I'll talk. All right, we can talk about it.
I'd be remiss to say also the biggest point, even outside of taking care of themselves, the family aspect. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, different situations. Obviously, used in the correct way, income, money can help, and I think that's another part people also often glaze over. You see a lot of stories. Everyone goes through different struggles. So anytime a college kid can help, it's a positive in my book. So I'll leave it at that.
No doubt. So sorry I almost missed you, my guy.
No, that was a good catch.
Appreciate it. Good catch. As always, make sure you guys are hitting us, following us on all of our social medias, X, Instagram, at State Media PSU, me and B personally, and we will be back next week after Maryland.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving. Yes, sir. Have a great Thanksgiving. My favorite holiday of the year.
Oh, yeah. Eat up, drink up. See you guys.
Come on.